Let's talk about the markets in 3 minutes and focus first on this China story and your perspective on it. Is this something that must have legs for longer than just today? Is this a real turning point?
I think so. As you know, I'm biased. I've been in that camp for a couple of weeks now. I think that, the bottom was already in for stocks because people knew that the next turning point was going to be a positive one. But this has come earlier than expected. So even those people who thought it had bottomed, even those people who thought the next twist in this narrative was going to be a reopening, we didn't think it was coming this soon. And it's coming on a day when cases are surging. So that's even more of a signal. It's saying, look, we know we've got a COVID problem, but we're willing to tackle it. We know the economy needs this. I think it's a massive signal. All that said, it is a big turning point, but it's not a straight line from here. It's still going to be a very slow process. There's going to be a lot of volatility. I think that the bottom's in. I think the turning point's in. But I can see the next couple of weeks there being days of massive disappointment when people realize it's not suddenly an open China. There's still going to be targeted lockdowns. This story will still have volatility. It's just going to be upward volatility from here on out.
OK, and just at the weekend, they were telling us they were not moving away from COVID zero, but these are important signals about direction and where at the margin, perhaps, the policy is then moving. Let me ask you about the inflation print. Of course, before we got this better news out of China, we had great news out of the United States in terms of a moderation in the pace of inflation there. It is still at really elevated levels, but the positives were clear to see. The market jumped on them. Inflation weaker than all of the estimates at core and at headline, and the market, well, it was what the market had been waiting for, it seems.
Yeah, I think this was definitely a soft number. So we talked about it in the program yesterday about I expect the number to be soft, but this was softer than even people like me thought. So it was a clear positive surprise. You just can't negate that. When I came in, I was like, oh my God, this is an overreaction. But it wasn't really an overreaction. This was a big turning point. We might have seen the peak. As you mentioned, Anna, this isn't the end of the inflation story. We knew that inflation was likely peaking. We weren't sure exactly which month. We knew that this was going to be a softer print. Yes, it came in even softer. But the problem is core services are still very, very high. They're still very, very persistent. The inflation problem is not going away. It'll still be there until late next year. However, how do you trade this? I think the market has followed through on the downside on the dollar, on yields for another couple of weeks. Dollar might have turned longer term, as I've been saying for a few weeks. The yields, though, may not have peaked longer term. Remember, China reopening is a re-inflationary story for the rest of the world.
Yeah, the biggest drop in the dollar since 2009, the biggest increase in the yen versus the dollar since 1998. Yes, and we'll leave the inflationary impulse of China reopening for another day. Quick word on crypto. Even on a day like today, post-CPI and with this China news, crypto back to a retreat.
There's still more follow-through on this. There are more exchanges blocking transactions. There are more people still liquidating. I've been talking to people in the market. They are still working through their books. There's pain still to come in the next couple of weeks.